This is the PulseChain Dream. I'm going to go through some final targets. And when I mean final, not really, friends. We're just guessing, man. It's not financial advice. We're allowed to dream big. I mean, Michael Chad Saylor comes out with his cybernetic hornet's nest laser eyes, pew, 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 and says, $13 million Bitcoin. It's going to keep growing forever and ever. How does he get a $13 million Bitcoin? He just assumes a 20% growth rate, bare minimum, for Bitcoin for the next, 20 years or whatever. And that's very, very controversial. Why? It's because gold right now, it's like 20 trillion. Yeah, but gold, even when gold was around 10 to 12 trillion, gold was pretty much still growing at around the global M2 money supply. So it would hover low end 5, high end 10. Let's just call it 8. Okay, it grows around 8. So Michael Chad Saylor thinks that when Bitcoin gets to gold, it's not going to grow at global M2 around, 7 or 8%, whatever they debase the currency at. He thinks it's going to keep growing at 20. Now, that compounds over 20 years to a really large number. Okay, if you're doing an extra, think about it, 8% versus 20% for an extra 20 years. And my gosh, friends, I'm actually shocked right now. So I calculated what happens to your, what multiplier on price do you get? And let's actually do it right now. If you grow at 8% for 20 years or grow at 20% for 20 years, okay? Friends, if you grow at 8% for 20 years, your multiplier is around 4.8x on price. But if you grow at 20% for 20 years, your number's 38x on price. My gosh. So that's enormous, man. So that could be the deviation between where Michael Saylor thinks Bitcoin's growing and where it might actually grow, right? So that's huge. So if he thinks Bitcoin ends up at 13 million, maybe the real number is you got to divide it by 9 in that period of time. So that would be 13 divided by 9. It's about 1.5 million. You see, that's a huge deviation. What I can do is actually show it to you over here on this chart, right? Because Michael Saylor's got till 2045, okay? So it's a big deviation, right? So he thinks 13 million over here, whereas if you just do this growth rate, this is the number, okay? So I guess he believes it's going to go to 13 million, and then this is what happens if you grow at the same rate of gold, right? It's very interesting how you think about these. That's why, these are important in terms of looking at the base money supply and how these things are growing, because I'm going to show you now with PulseChain what numbers we're actually dealing with. Now, remember, ultimately, I'm trying to guess what the future of the world is, okay, friends? It's a wild world. Everybody's got their own Pokeball. Everyone's trying to catch each other like I am trying to catch you as my friend. Crypto's around 3 to 3.5 trillion-ish. We're hoping that, and by we, I mean me and all of us, we're hoping crypto grows to 10 trillion in this cycle. If you keep pushing it out to the future, Roll Powell's got estimates of 100 trillion by 2030. So, this cycle and then next cycle, which is quite huge when you think about something like that. And these numbers, they do go exponential. But is Raul too bullish or bearish? Well, you got to know about the full picture. So crypto can go to 100 trillion. It doesn't mean all the bags pumped up that much. Because, for example, we are going to add 2 trillion of stable coins in the next 4 years. Now, if we add 2 trillion of stable coins, they can literally just sit there as a US dollar bank account and they can have nothing to do with your altcoin. But they just add 2 trillion to the market cap. The US government can add 5 trillion of treasuries into crypto, and then we just add it to the market cap and it has its own sector. And you're like, oh, we've added 5 trillion to the whole industry. But no, but these treasuries, they trade on their own systems with a CME on their own private chains, and they have nothing to do with crypto. So you're not going to get someone turbo bull posting, one of your altcoins in the trenches with a $750 billion treasury bid that's just going to come smack it up. We're not going to get that world, okay? So when I'm talking about PulseChain and the numbers, I'm aiming for a world of 10 trillion. I'm expecting, hoping, all right? We never know what these things go at. That Bitcoin's 200,000, right? Ethereum is anywhere from 10 to 16,000. Others grows 10x and so on. So everything hopefully hits around 10 trillion. And is that big? Not really. Stocks is 150 trillion. Gold's like 22 trillion. Bonds are 200 trillion. Properties 200 trillion. Cash is 90 trillion. So crypto to 10, it's very reasonable. Now, here's the thing. We all know it's growing there. The thing is, though, like, who are going to be the winners and the losers? That's what we're all trying to ultimately guess, right? Because we don't have a full grasp on that. That's why we're all trying to pick the fastest winning horse. And so hopefully you're in many horses, right? But there's only one way to make it, and it's for you to study the conviction play. So whether crypto grows there or not, it's outside of our control, really. But if it was to hit to the target, who made it? It's the people who simply bought and believed. Okay. Obviously, PulseChain is an EVM, and it's basically a kind of an extension of Ethereum, right? That's just pretty much how it moves. Remember, an altcoin like PulseChain and all the other altcoins, they are correlated to the business cycle. The business cycle has these fluctuations up and down. What makes Bitcoin, BlackRock Bitcoin special is that statistically it correlates to global M2. So that's what makes it special over time. And this is actually its chart over time. This is what it looks like since 2013. See the global total liquidity going up over time. And here is pretty much Bitcoin going up. Thanks to LPR for this. So the correlation of Bitcoin to global liquidity, it's about 89.5%. It's very, very high, okay? The NASDAQ itself is 95% correlation. It's kind of interesting, right? So when they print money, people do something when they print the currency, yeah? So there's 90% correlation pretty much to Bitcoin, 95% with the NASDAQ. So people are taking the excess monetary units, they're storing it in networks, and that's the juice. That's really the juice of what makes crypto tick. But that doesn't go on forever and then stop, right? Eventually what happens is the business cycle kicks up, and then basically there's a positive flywheel, and that's where we have our famous alt seasons. So now you have an idea of these valuations, right? Because if people just come out and say, oh, 10x, 20x, 1000x, please. Yeah, bro, I want everything I own to go 1000x more. Just like you want to wake up and you want your Toyota Corolla to be a Ferrari. And, you know, there's many, many things you wish you could change, okay? But are they going to get there? That's another thing, okay? So let's start with just like, we'll do the core coins, for example, for PulseChain. So if you just go to, for example, gopulse.com and you remove the origin address, so you include OA, you can exclude it. If you exclude the OA, you can grab the market caps of everything, and you can see how much is PulseChain ecosystem, how much is it roughly worth today. And if you add all of these up, including eHEX, you'll get around 2.5 to 3 billion. Okay, let's just put 3 billion because you got to add Richard Hart's meme coins in there as well because they are part of his network effect. Right, because everything just gets split. Because remember, you're trying to make the piece of the pie whole bigger, but you're just chopping up in many pieces, okay? So let's just round it up. It's around 3 billion, okay? Remember that number 3. Now, 3 is tiny, okay? Because Bitcoin is 2 trillion, right? So if Bitcoin hits 150K, that's a 3 trillion market cap. So PulseChain's only 3 billion. So literally, Bitcoin valuation is 1,000x more expensive. So another way to look at it is Bitcoin is 30 squared bigger. So the network of Bitcoin is literally 30 times bigger than PulseChain, okay, which is enormous. You think about 30 times, right? Because when you use Metcalfe's law, the value of something is the square of the number of participants, right? So if someone's got 30 times more users and it's the exact same people, it's 30 squared more value. It's about 900x to 1,000. But the good thing is, right, because PulseChain's so small, you don't need 1,000x, okay? You don't need you can invest however you want, but like if you need 1,000x in anything to change your life, you're not long enough, okay? Not financial advice, obviously. It's kind of like if you go to a job and then, you know, your employer says, oh, how much do you want? And you're like, oh, I need a $400,000 monthly salary to live, you know? And maybe your employee goes, you know what? You might have some problems with your lifestyle, you know? So you have to come back to reality a bit. So what would the dream be? Okay, so if the total PulseChain ecosystem is about 3 billion, I guess the dream would be if Pulse, PulseX, eHEX, pHEX, Inc. Remember, they have different ratios, but don't worry about them. If all of these collectively together, okay, if they hit somewhere between 100 to 200 billion. Okay, remember, it's at 3 now. So you could say, oh, it's about a 50x. Okay, about a 50x. Where would a 50x take all of us from today? For Pulse, it would take you around 20x sack price. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through each coin just because everyone wants to see it. So it's 0.002. That's where a 50x would roughly take you. Remember, if everything just went up 50x, ratios didn't move, it would be about 150 billion valuation, right? Because I'm using the number between 100 to 200, yeah? And remember, these things go parabolic. They don't last long there. And the big acceleration happens at the very, very end, which, you know, maybe before we even check PulseX, I just want to remind you how fast things went in HEX, right? In HEX last cycle. HEX was, remember friends, HEX peaked here around 45 billion without the origin address, okay? So 45 billion. But look what it was doing in just June of that year, friends. It was 10x lower. So right here, it was 4.5 billion, and up here was 45 billion. But I want you to see how fast this actually happened. Check out this time period. This period of time was 110 days, so 4 months. So because the valuation went up a 10x, okay, 10x, what happened is HEX's network value, the number of participants, went up about 3. Okay, so pretty much back then, let's just say they had like 20,000 people in HEX. They went from 20,000, and in a space of like 4 months, 20,000, they went to 60,000 people in it. That's like around the 3, and you got about a 9 or a 10x pop up in it, okay? So these things can happen very, very fast, can't they? In just the final 100 or 110 days, okay? So it doesn't mean they sustain themselves, but that also might make you think about the game theory from Richard Hart. Because if he knows everybody wants to sell and leave, I wonder if he does something different, which we'll move on to a bit shortly after. So I've already seen the PulseChain PLS price. Where would a 50x in PulseX take us? A 50x would take us around, you know, around 18x sack price, so 0.0018. And remember, you're never going to be able to time the exact top. And the beautiful part is as well, PulseX is going to have aggressive buy and burn, which is happening. It's above 7% now of the total buy and burn. As there's more exchange listings, as the prices go up and more volume occurs, there might be, you know, some other narratives like pWBTC, pDAI, which makes people trade and swing stuff around. It's going to be ratcheting up the buy and burn, so that could contribute to everything as well. What about HEX? Let's look at pHEX. Where would a 50x from here take it? 50x would roughly take HEX all the way up to, let's keep going and going and going. It will take it to about 40 cents. Now, here's the thing as well. When it comes to, say, HEX, it is possible where HEX goes up to 40 or 50 cents, okay? People think it's over. And I'm just going to just say it out flat straight. Richard could sell Pulse, right? Because HEX's liquidity is really thin. He could be selling Pulse and then use that to rotate into HEX and give it the final 2 or 3x flush up and actually make this thing hit $1. So you might find in the final burst up, this thing could go up and actually ping $1, okay? But during this period of time, PLS is actually maybe like, you know, rotating out and down depending on the liquidity. Now, do I have any inkling that this is going to happen? No, I don't know. I'm just showing you that things can go very wild at the very, very end. I guess it just depends on the state of euphoria, where Ethereum is, etc., okay? So if you want to do a 50x as well on eHEX, actually, let's go look at the actual full chart of HEX from Ethereum eHEX. Where would a 50x just bluntly take it out from here? Remember, this assumes the ratio doesn't change. A 50x would take it about back to 18 cents. Okay, that's where it would be, around here, yes. So doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get there. We don't know if they even can get there. You know, you need, remember, the business cycle to continue, Ethereum to stop cucking us, etc., etc. What about Ink, the greenest logo in crypto? I can show you Ink as well. Ink, right, roughly, you know, $2-ish. A 50x will take it up to 100, right? But you never know with Ink as well, because Ink, they can play around with it, okay? In a very family-friendly way type of play around, because this is where some like unicorn effects might happen. If there's a pDAI and a pWBTC unicorn event happening, okay, there could be incentives from literally incentive token to invite people to come and bond themselves in. which changes up the game, because the whole point is to grab all the liquidity from, you know, Bitcoin and Ethereum outside the chain to come in. So that might be another wild card thrown in. So you got to understand. So on a scale of, remember, I don't know if this is going to happen or not. Okay. I've got no idea. This is what I'm playing for, right? I hope it happens. But in terms of like risk, everyone in PulseChain, what I just showed you, most people, they almost have it like in their mind that that's a guarantee. Okay. They're like, okay, that's a guarantee. Just be happy. You're going to get your 50, 100x. And I keep saying, bro, like, how's everyone going to be able to sell at a 50x from here and then walk away? Something like that's not going to, something's not going to go to plan. But let's just assume in everyone's mind, it's definitely going to happen. Okay. Now, the next part is we are traveling further down the risk curve. Okay. So already, if you look at the risk curve of crypto, which I'll show you, okay, you have, all right, if you draw the risk curve, right, Bitcoin is here, right? Then here is Ethereum. And then you have like Solana. And then if you keep going up, you have like, you know, next to Solana's maybe BNB as well. And then all the way on the end, you have Pulse. But then if you go even further, you have the pDAI, okay? You are further down the risk curve. So what's increasing as you go further on this curve? Okay, you are increasing your return here, RET return, okay? And obviously on the right-hand side is your risk. Pretty much risk of what? Risk of ruin, risk of abandonment, risk that the thing's not going to work out, risk that it's bugged, risk of everything, okay? So you see how as you go further along the risk curve, your return goes up. The problem is, of course, what right next to pDAI, you've got Solana trenches, trash coins, JPEG coins, memes that aren't funny, that are just going to go to zero and die, okay? So that's why it really is further along the risk curve, isn't it? But if we do see a world where we go down that risk curve and it plays out. If, okay, it's not guaranteed, but if we do, roughly from today, remember, you're looking at 50x for PulseChain. That'll be about a 100 or 200 billion valuation, okay? Well, pDAI, if it got to $1, would give you around 360x, okay? Now, 360x is from where I'm doing that number. If you bought it basically from April, okay, you know, tax destruction, Trump tariffs, you would get about 1,380x. All right, so 1,380x. Now, you see how these numbers are enormous? But it's not like, oh, it's free. No, nothing's free, okay? It's risky. pDAI already went to zero twice. Okay, so Caddy killed it. Here you go, went to zero, 99.79%. It actually went to zero again at the start, 99.94%. So it's pretty much went to zero here and it went to zero here. So it could go to zero again. But you can see how the numbers, they're huge now. Like if you were buying in April, it's 1,000x to $1, man. That's huge, right? And it was there for a long time. Everyone has plenty of opportunity to get there, right? But you can see how there's more risk, there's more uncertainty, there's way more unknowns. Does Richard like it? Does he not like it? I don't know what's going on. Yeah, welcome to the club. No one knows what the hell's going on, okay? Maybe only one or two people know what's going on and they'll never tell you or me, okay? What's going to happen with all the excess supply? Where'd Caddy go? The Vietnamese kids scam Long Dong. Right, all these unknowns. See, people aren't asking these questions about Pulse, okay? People outside PulseChain are asking those questions, but if you're in PulseChain, like, you got a good feeling, hey, there's a community, meme cults, religions. You saw HEX pump up. You're waiting for Richard to stream. Like, you've seen this before. But you can see there's a difference, right? So, PulseChain core coins, I guess you're looking at like a 50, okay? To the absolute top. So, maybe 25 to 50, right? But with pDAI, and we'll now look at pWBTC, right? You had 1,000x there. You see how there's like, whoa, like you've even astronomically blown it. But these are rare, hard to repeat, never seen before, super risky. Super risky. Like the story's never been done before. With PulseChain, you're basing it off, oh, things in the past happened good and they happened for us before. You know, Richard Hart streamed. He had the PulseChain sacrifice, 2021. He rotated the Ethereum in, everything pumped. It's a layer one. Like, you know, PulseChain's a layer one chain, just like Ethereum. You have HEX, it's now in cycle 2. You have PulseX, it's the DEX. So you're familiar with what they are. With pDAI, an unstable coin, you don't know what to do because there is no category for it. It's literally, do you think it's going to work or not? That's what makes it difficult. That's why the market feels very uncomfortable with risk when it comes to these. However, if you have information asymmetry, if you can stomach the risk, if you can figure out that something is alive when everyone says it's dead, you've got a whopping upside return, don't you? And you don't need a lot. You just put a lottery ticket and walk away. Remember, if it doesn't work, no crying in the casino. I mean, like, bro, it went to 0 twice already. You know what I mean? You need me to tell me? It literally went to 0 twice. It can go to 0. It can go to 0 for the 3rd time and stay dead, okay? So here is pWBTC, which would also be included in the pack. So if pWBTC went to BlackRock BTC when it was like 200K, you'd get a whopping 400x return as well. So here you go, another wild, massive unicorn. And by the way, if you got it here, you're looking at almost a 1000x. If you got it from, let me actually show it to you. If you got it back when the capitulations were happening and Bitcoin hits 200K, there you go, 1300x. That's wild, right? So you literally have your 1000x return. Isn't that wild? Now, we don't know if they're going to happen, but that would be the dream. You see how 95% of PulseChain, they love the core coins, and they're like, in their mind, they're like, oh, I'm really happy with my potential 25 to 50x in these. Like, they're really happy. Hopefully it goes to 100 and pops, but you know, average price, whatever. They're very, very happy with these. And they're like, hey, I'm happy to sit on the sidelines with anything else because, like, in their mind, they're like really sure this can happen, right? So for people who are like wanting to go further, remember I'm here 18 hours a day. If you can uncover stuff, the upside's enormous, okay? Because pDAI and pWBTC, they've only got like 5% approval of the whole chain. pDAI is worse. It's literally about 5%, maybe 10% approval. So the cult hates a coin, so it's a cult within a cult. That's why it's like a super far dated, out of the money call option. that's what it would be if this thing works out. So here is me, Coexistence Steven, and Richard with our peg nipples hanging around out here, thinking about how the bull market is going to play out. Me and my fluffy slippers, Richard Hart in his moon boots. I wonder how it's going to play out, right? Quite the tale. The dev's cooking. Here are all the PulseChain core coins, and I've thrown in pDAI and pWBTC. Now, before we even go through anything else, I think it's important for you to know why is pDAI and pWBTC, why exist? Is it to make people rich? Maybe. Maybe not. Why do they exist? Well, there's a reason why they exist, right? And it's a very, very obvious, transparent reason, okay? Yeah, there's a story. Yeah, we need a decentralized, blacklist functionless stablecoin. Yes, CBDCs are coming. Yes, we need proper sovereignty on proper chain. We need all that stuff, the tech, okay? We need the tech to liberate mankind, but there's also another big reason why we need them. We need them because every single person in the Richard Hart core coins has been hinting that they want to sell on us and leave. Okay? Every single person. Okay? You name a streamer. Name a streamer. Name them. They've been talking about selling and leaving. Right? And you know they are. They can't even hide it. They can't even hide it because things have gone so bad with the business cycle going down. They're like, yeah, I can't wait to sell and leave. Sometimes they just outright say it in their tweets and stuff. Okay, they probably, a lot of you guys, you forget, bro. If I can see it, what do you think Richard's doing, bro? The guy's got the keys to the castle. You know, if I had access to a wallet with billions of dollars, you think I'm going to be playing checkers? No, bro. I'm going to start playing chess because I know you want to sell on me and leave. Now, I've got some ideas for how he's going to shake us out, and I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not even going to hint them, okay? Because I don't want any, because if these things work, it's going to be great. Okay? You're not going to get any of it out of me. Now, if everyone wants to sell and leave, what PulseX, HEX, and Inc., why? Well, it's because of the business cycle, right? Because we know altcoins correlate to the business cycle of the world. Yes, so when the business cycle goes down, like here, and here, and here. Altcoins get ravaged. 95%, they're down for 3 years, and you go move on, and then mindshare goes to other altcoins, and it gets harder and harder to retain attention. Okay. But what if there was a way that you could hold something in PulseChain during the bear market that everybody else wants to hold, that you don't need to leave the chain for? Well, you're looking at them. pDAI would be an unstable coin pegged to the US dollar, the world reserve currency. So when global M2, friends, remember I showed you the global M2 chart with my friend Mr. Rahul? See this? When global M2 goes down, okay, see this part going down? Actually, I'll zoom in for you. Actually, I'll show you, right? When global M2 goes down, this is our bear market. This is our bear market here. When global M2, they stop printing, okay? This is also our bear market. See these big three bear markets? Yeah? When they stop printing, okay? So why do they stop printing? It's because they printed a lot. Inflation gets a bit too hot. They got to pull it back a bit, okay? And then crypto has the bear market, yeah. But during that time, US dollars gets scarce, okay? And if you're from Ireland, you say scarce. It gets more scarce. So US dollars become like really powerful. Your purchasing power goes up a lot. Everyone in the world wants dollars. Do you know 55% of the world debt is US dollars? Yeah. So every time the US dollar gets a bit more powerful, think about it. 1 in 2 dollars of debt in the world start to feel the pinch. That's how powerful it is, okay? Because everybody in the world's got US dollar debt, right? So if pDAI as an unstable coin was pegged to $1, now, my friends, you would have these PulseChain core coins existing in a world where you can also hold pDAI in your wallet and stay on the PulseChain. You don't need to bridge out. See, without pDAI as a peg, what's everyone going to do? They're going to sell these core coins. They're going to walk away and they're going to go, oh, okay, sweet. I'm a genius. You're all idiots. I'm walking away. And then all the audience is going to ask, hey, what about your 1000X? You said this thing was going to go 10,000X. You said HEX was going to go to $1. Why'd you sell it 35 cents? They just don't reply to you because, you know, they're happy to get out early. They're just posturing to everybody else. They're full of shit. They just can't wait to sell and leave, right? But, and I know you like big butts like me. If there's a stable coin, pDAI, now you never need to leave. Because you're holding the stable coin. It's your defensive play. Now, what about pWBTC? Well, when they start to turn on the global M2 money printer again, which they do in all the business cycle bear markets like this, right? You see how we have the bear market here? What I'm going to do now, so first the rectangles are the bear markets. Now I'm going to draw circles. This is where they start to print again. See these circles? This is global M2 rising. See this circle part? What do you want to own during that time? Bitcoin. Bitcoin is correlated to global M2 over time. So if someone who may or may not be a duck, who used to live on top of a sandwich shop, or someone else out there, maybe Maria Glitterpants, if someone can get pWBTC, the PulseChain Bitcoin, if they can get that to peg to the BlackRock Bitcoin, now you literally never need to leave the chain. If they move lockstep, now on PulseChain, you can buy Bitcoin, you can stack your stables, and if the business cycle starts ticking up, you can deploy them, you can spend your Bitcoin and spend your pDAI, which is $1. You can go buy the PulseChain core coins, which Richard Hart founded here again. And so you've never needed to leave. The network effect is solidified. You're literally in PulseChain City. You never need a bridge out. Why would you go need a bridge out? You don't need to. Makes sense now? Now, the puzzle piece is not completed yet because that's why there's speculation and risk, right? Obviously, pDAI is not $1 and purple Bitcoin, the people's Bitcoin, is not pegged to BlackRock BTC. But now you can see why it would be advantageous to a chain if they had this mechanism. Demand hands. So that's the thesis I'm playing for. So remember, it's never before done. That's why pDAI and People's DAI and People's Bitcoin, that's why their returns from here to the theoretical peg, if it happens, if it did play out, it gives you a 400x. And from a month ago, it gives you a 1000x. Yeah. And then the PulseChain core coins, what's their upside? Around the 50. Okay. Now, it's beautiful that PulseChain is so contrarian. You don't have to worry about this, whether this works or not. The upside's still 50. You know what I mean? You're not getting a 50 on many other things with like good conviction, right? So that would be the dream, my friends, if we got those all to play out. Remember, the People's Bitcoin and the People's DAI, they are further along the risk curve. Doesn't mean they all play out, not necessarily, but that's what I'm playing for. So I just want you to think about what would be going through your mind if you were to see in the future that pDAI is 10 cents one day. Okay, I'm trying to help prepare you, right? Would that increase your probability that the PulseChain Dream is going to happen? You know? Because, you know, if pDAI hits 10 cents, you don't have to buy it, right? But you could maybe think about, oh, wow, you're like more convicted on PulseChain now. So it's something to think about in terms of connecting all the pieces. But for the rest of us, we know exactly what we have to do. Don't stop believing. Like, subscribe, belly button, or catch you soon.